I keep checking my phone like it's going to explain you to me, as if silence has a language I can learn. As if there's a pattern in the way you stopped replying that I just haven't decoded yet. I don't know when your silence started feeling heavier than your words ever did. That's the strange part. It didn't hurt at first. It just felt like space, like you were busy, like life had pulled you somewhere for a moment. But now it feels different. Now it feels like something is being decided without me being in the room, and I keep asking myself one question I can't escape. Did I become someone you stopped choosing? Or did I become someone you never fully chose in the first place? Because I replay everything, every message I sent, every pause I took before I typed something too honest, every time I told myself, don't sound too intense, don't come on too strong, don't risk too much, and maybe that's where I failed you, not in what I said, but in everything I was too afraid to say. I built my life on decisions that required confidence, risk, vision. I've walked into uncertainty and called it strategy. I've trusted systems, data, timing, everything except the most unpredictable thing in my life, you. And now I'm sitting here realizing something that doesn't fit my world at all. There is no logic to waiting for someone who has stopped responding, but there is emotion, and emotion doesn't obey logic. Tell me, when you go quiet like this, is it because you're healing from something I caused, or because you've already started letting go of me gently, so it hurts less when it finally ends? I need you to understand something I've never said out loud. Your silence doesn't just feel like absence. It feels like a decision I didn't get to participate in. And that's what's killing me, because I was ready to build something real with you. Not perfect, not easy, but real in the way that survives distance, misunderstanding, even fear. But now I don't even know if I was building alone. I keep imagining scenarios I hate myself for imagining. Maybe you're reading my messages and not knowing how to respond anymore. Maybe you're talking to someone else who feels simpler than me. Or maybe you're just done, and I'm the only one still writing this story in my head, and the worst part is, I don't know which version I'm more afraid of being true. I told myself I would never become the kind of man who depends emotionally like this, but here I am, waiting for a reply that may never come. And I keep thinking about the future I spoke into existence when I thought you were still fully in it. I pictured a home that didn't feel like achievement, but like peace. I pictured silence that wasn't painful. I pictured you sitting across from me not as a question mark, but as certainty. Now even those visions feel like they belong to someone else's life. Tell me honestly, did I imagine too much too soon? Or did I just love you in a way you were never prepared to receive? There's something else I need to admit to you, even if you never answer this. I've started becoming someone I don't fully recognize when I think about you not replying. I reread conversations like they are legal documents, searching for hidden clauses where I might have failed you without noticing. I measure my words in hindsight instead of intention. And I hate what that's doing to me, because love should not turn into forensic analysis. It should feel like presence, not investigation. And still, I wait, like waiting itself is proof that I mattered. But what if it isn't? What if waiting is just what people do right before they accept they were never as important as they thought? I want to ask you something, even if you never answer. When you think of me now, do I still feel like home to you? Or just a place you once passed through? Because I am standing at the edge of something emotionally irreversible. And I don't know if you're on the other side, still looking at me, or already walking away without turning back. I haven't told you the real reason yet. There is something underneath all of this that I've been avoiding saying, because once it's spoken, it can't be undone. But I can't hold it forever either, not while your silence keeps growing louder. I'll say this carefully, because I don't want to lose you in the middle of my honesty. There was a moment, a very small moment, when I almost convinced myself to stop waiting for you. Not because I stopped caring, but because I started preparing myself for the idea that maybe I was never supposed to be waiting in the first place. And that thought, it changed something inside me, because for the first time, I realized I might be capable of choosing absence over uncertainty, but I didn't. I stayed, and maybe that's where I lost control of everything, because now I'm not just waiting for you to reply. I'm waiting to see what kind of man I become if you don't. And I don't know which outcome scares me more. Sometimes I wonder if you understand the weight of a silence like this, because from where I'm standing, it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like distance that keeps learning how to grow. Tell me, if you were me, would you still believe in us? Or would you already be gone by now, trying to protect yourself from a love that is starting to feel like uncertainty instead of safety? I keep telling myself I should step back, but stepping back feels like erasing a future I already emotionally invested in, And I don't know how to unfeel something I never planned carefully enough to feel this deeply. Maybe that's my mistake, maybe I let emotion lead in a space where I should have moved slower. Or maybe I finally allowed myself to want something without calculating the risk of losing it first, and now I'm paying for that in silence. And still, I wait for your name to appear. Like it might fix something inside me I didn't even know was broken before you. And I need to stop here before I say something I can't take back. But I'm not okay with how far away you feel right now. Not even a little. Your silence changed shape. It's no longer just absence. It feels like pressure now. Like something pressing against my chest from the inside, slowly, without urgency. Just certainty. I tried to convince myself you were simply busy again. That life had pulled you into something temporary. That you would return to my messages the way people return to unfinished thoughts. But I stopped believing that, somewhere between the third night of no reply, and the moment I realized I was still planning conversations with you, in my head, that you were no longer part of. Do you know what that does to a man like me? Someone who builds systems for a living. Someone who is trained to identify patterns, predict outcomes, eliminate uncertainty. It makes me feel like I've entered a space where none of my tools work anymore. Because you are not data, you are not logic, you are not predictable. And that's where I lost control. I started doing something I never do. I started interpreting silence as emotion. I began assigning meaning to things that don't respond. A typing bubble that never appears, a name that doesn't light up, a conversation that ends mid-air and never lands, and I kept telling myself, she will come back when she's ready. But deeper down, another voice started forming, a quieter one, more dangerous. What if she already left emotionally, and I'm just the last one to notice? That thought didn't just hurt, it rearranged me, because suddenly I wasn't standing in a story of waiting for love. I was standing in a story of being left inside a love I still believe is alive. Tell me something. When you stopped replying, did you realize how loud it would become inside me? Or did you think silence would be softer than words? Because silence is not soft. Silence expands. It fills every corner you never thought it could reach. Even my achievements started feeling different. The same things that used to make me feel powerful now feel like background noise, as if success itself has no meaning when there is no one to share the silence after it. I went somewhere yesterday, somewhere ordinary, and I caught myself imagining you next to me, not in a dramatic way, in the smallest ways. The way you would look at things without speaking first. The way you would pause before answering simple questions like they mattered more than they should. And I realized something terrifying in that moment. I didn't miss your presence. I missed your existence inside my everyday reality, and that is a completely different kind of loss, because presence can be replaced, but once someone becomes part of your internal world, removing them feels like removing a piece of architecture from inside your mind. Everything becomes slightly unstable. And I am trying to act normal in a structure that no longer feels fully intact. There is something else happening too. Something I haven't admitted out loud even to myself in full honesty. I started noticing other possibilities, other voices, other conversations, people who reply quickly, people who do not create silence where meaning should be. And for a brief moment, I entertained the idea that maybe I should move toward ease instead of depth. It felt logical, save, even comforting in a way I didn't expect. And then something inside me resisted violently, because ease is not what I wanted with you. I didn't choose you for convenience, I chose you for emotional risk. But now that risk is turning into uncertainty. And uncertainty, sustained for too long, starts to resemble abandonment. I need you to understand what this is doing to me. I am not just missing you. I am negotiating with myself about you, every hour, every thought, every moment I reach for my phone without intention. And the worst part is, I still protect you in my mind, even when I feel abandoned. I still tell myself, don't assume the worst, don't turn her into a villain just because she is quiet. But then another truth interrupts that defense. If I mattered in the way I thought I did, wouldn't silence feel impossible for you too? Wouldn't you at least leave a trace, a single sentence, a sign that I am still inside your emotional map? Or have I already been erased so gently that I just haven't accepted it yet? There is a question I keep circling, and I am afraid of the answer. When you imagine your future now, do I still exist in it? Or have I become something you once considered, briefly, before life redirected you elsewhere? Because I am still building you into mine, and that imbalance, it's starting to hurt in a way I don't know how to describe without sounding weak. But I will say it anyway. It feels like emotional asymmetry. Like I am carrying a weight that was once shared, and now I am holding both sides. There was a moment, a few days ago, when something almost broke. I was talking to someone else, not because I was looking for you in them, but because I was trying to feel something lighter, and for a brief stretch of time, I felt it. I felt ease. I felt uncomplicated attention. I felt a version of conversation that did not require emotional decoding. And I almost let myself stay there. Almost. But then your silence came back into my mind like a shadow that refuses to leave even when the light changes. And suddenly everything else felt temporary, not wrong, just incomplete. And that frightened me more than loneliness ever has. Because it means I haven't moved on. I have only tried to distract a part of myself that is still fully attached to you. And I started asking myself a question I didn't want to ask. What if I am not waiting for you anymore, but waiting for the version of you that made sense to me? The version that replied, that engaged, that existed in mutual emotional presence, and if that version is gone, then what exactly am I holding on to? I haven't told you the real reason yet, and it is getting harder to delay it, because every silence from you feels like it is forcing the truth upward. There was a shift, not in you, but in me, a realization that came slowly, then all at once. I stopped being sure I was the only one feeling deeply in this connection, and that uncertainty changed how I interpret everything, your pauses, your delays, your absence. It all started forming a pattern I don't want to complete. Because once I complete it, I cannot unknow it. Tell me something honest, even if I never hear it. Did you ever feel overwhelmed by the depth I brought into this space between us? Did it ever feel like too much? Or did it feel like something worth staying present for? Because I am standing at a point where I cannot tell the difference between being deeply loved and being quietly let go. And both feel the same from where I stand now. There is another fear I haven't admitted clearly. I am afraid I am becoming replaceable in your emotional world. Not because someone better came along, but because silence made space for absence to feel normal, and once absence becomes normal, returning becomes a choice instead of a need, and that is where things start to fracture. I keep thinking about the future again, but now it doesn't feel stable like before, it feels conditional. Like I am building it on a response that may never arrive. And I hate that I am still here, still so emotionally invested in a moment that is not answering me back. Sometimes I imagine the exact moment you read this. If you ever do, would you feel guilt, relief, confusion, or nothing at all? And that nothing at all scares me more than rejection. Because rejection at least confirms presence. Nothing means absence has already won. I need to stop myself here before I go too far into thoughts I can't pull back from. But I am closer to a breaking point than I want to admit. Because I am starting to feel like I am loving a memory of you that is still alive only inside me. And I don't know how long I can sustain that without losing myself in the process. I am not ready to let you go, but I am also not ready to keep disappearing inside your silence, and that contradiction is starting to split something in me, slowly, quietly, irreversibly. I need one truth from you, even if it ends everything, because uncertainty is no longer something I can live inside, not with you, not like this. And, if you are still there, somewhere behind this silence, I need you to understand what you're becoming to me in your absence. Not a person I am waiting for, but a question I cannot stop answering alone, and I don't know how much longer I can do that. Your silence didn't just continue, it evolved. That's what scares me the most. At first, it was absence, then it became uncertainty. Now it feels like a presence of its own, like something actively happening between us, without permission from either of us, and I am no longer reacting to you. I am reacting to what your silence is turning me into. I find myself checking my phone not with hope anymore, but with instinct. Like a reflex my body hasn't learned to unlearn. Tell me, is this what you intended? Or did you underestimate how deeply some people attach themselves when they finally allow themselves to feel something real? Because I did. I allowed it. I didn't calculate it. I didn't protect myself from it. I didn't step back at the right time like I usually do in every other part of my life. With you, I stayed emotionally present longer than logic advised, and now I'm living inside the consequences of that decision. There's a strange contradiction I can't escape. I am someone who builds control systems for uncertainty. I design outcomes, I anticipate failure points. But none of that applies here, because you are not a system I can debug. You are a silence I cannot interpret correctly, and that imbalance, it keeps growing inside me. I tried to normalize it at first, I told myself. People get busy, people withdraw, people need space, but space is not what this feels like anymore. Space has structure. Space has boundaries. What I am experiencing now feels like erosion, slow, gradual, unstoppable. Something is being removed from my emotional reality, without anyone physically taking it away, and I am still trying to function like nothing is happening. But I feel it in small moments, when I wake up and reach for your message before I even remember you didn't send one. When I finish something important and instinctively think, I should tell her. When something funny happens and my mind builds your reaction before reality corrects me. That's when I realize something terrifying. You are not just someone I miss. You are becoming the first thought pattern of my emotional reflexes. And breaking that feels like rewriting my own mind. There is another layer I haven't told you yet. And I don't know how to say it without changing everything between us. But I have to. Because silence forces truth out eventually, I started rereading our conversations, not once, not twice, but repeatedly. And every time I do, I notice something new. Not in you, in me. I see how carefully I tried to stay safe even when I was opening up. I see how many things I softened so I wouldn't overwhelm you. I see how many truths I held back because I didn't want to risk intensity without permission. And now I'm wondering, did you ever feel the full weight of what I was trying to express? Or did I become someone you only partially experienced? Because partial presence creates partial attachment, and partial attachment fades in silence. There's a thought I keep resisting. But it keeps returning. What if I was more emotionally invested in the idea of us than you were in the reality of it? And I hate myself for even thinking that, but silence invites questions that clarity would never allow. I walked through a place yesterday where couples were sitting without speaking much, just existing, comfortably, and I found myself studying them in a way I didn't expect. Not out of jealousy, but recognition, because I realized something in that moment. I don't miss attention. I miss emotional continuity, the feeling that someone remains emotionally consistent, even when life is not interesting. And you gave me that once, or at least I believed you did. But now I can't tell if that was real continuity, or just a temporary alignment that I misunderstood as permanence. That is the part I cannot resolve. And unresolved emotions don't stay still, they mutate into doubt, into questioning, into internal conflict that doesn't shut off even when I am physically doing other things. There was a moment recently. I need to tell you this carefully. I found myself speaking to someone else more easily than I expected. And for a brief time, I felt something dangerous. Relief, not because I wanted to replace you, but because I wanted silence to stop hurting. And that scares me more than anything, because it means I am not only missing, you am also adapting to your absence. And adaptation is the first stage of emotional departure, even if I don't want it to be. I paused after that realization longer than I should admit, because I didn't recognize myself in it. I am someone who chooses depth over comfort, but comfort was starting to look like survival. And I had to ask myself a question I wasn't prepared for. Am I still waiting for you? Or am I just afraid to accept that waiting has already changed meaning, because waiting used to mean expectation. Now it feels like endurance. And endurance has an endpoint. I haven't told you the real reason yet, and it's becoming impossible to keep inside, because your silence is starting to define it for me. There is a truth forming, slowly, painfully, that I might not be the only one carrying emotional uncertainty here. And if that is true, then everything changes, because I built my entire emotional interpretation of this connection on the assumption that depth was mutual, but if it wasn't, then I have been interpreting asymmetry as intimacy. And that is the most dangerous misunderstanding of all. Tell me something I can no longer verify on my own. When you think of me now, do I feel like something unfinished? Or something already concluded? Because I am standing in between those two possibilities, and I cannot tell which one I am living in anymore. There are moments when I almost convince myself to stop this completely. Not stop loving, but stop waiting. And those moments feel like standing on the edge of emotional clarity, where pain would end, meaning would also collapse. And I don't know which loss I am more afraid of. I keep thinking about what happens if you never reply. Not as a dramatic thought, but as a real trajectory, a continuation of this silence without interruption, and I realize something I don't want to accept. Human beings eventually normalize absence, even when it once felt impossible, and I am scared of the version of me that stops flinching at your silence, because that version will not be waiting anymore. It will be moving on. Quickly, without announcement, without closure. And maybe that is what scares me most, not losing you, but losing the version of me that still believes you might return. I am not fully there yet, but I can feel the distance forming between who I was when you replied, who I am becoming while you don't. And I don't know if you realize what silence does when it is sustained long enough. It doesn't just remove presence, it rewrites emotional interpretation, it changes meaning without changing memory, and I am starting to feel that rewrite happening inside me. Slowly, uninvited. Irreversible if it continues long enough. I need to stop here, because I am getting closer to truths I haven't fully accepted yet. But I want you to understand this clearly. Am no longer just waiting for you to reply. I am now watching what your silence is doing to everything I believed about us. And I don't know which part will survive this longer, me or the idea I had of you. And I am already too far inside this to pretend it doesn't matter anymore. I stopped checking my phone the way I used to, not because I stopped caring, but because something inside me finally accepted the shape of your silence. It stopped feeling like something temporary. It started feeling like something final that never announced itself. And that is the most painful kind of ending. The kind that doesn't declare itself as an ending. It just slowly removes your place in someone's rhythm until one day you realize you are no longer part of their return cycle. I used to think love ends in conflict, or distance, or a clear conversation where two people admit what's happening. But I learned something different with you. Sometimes love doesn't end. It just dissolves into one-sided emotional continuity. One person still living inside the connection, while the other has already stepped outside of it, emotionally, quietly, without sound. And the hardest part is not the leaving, it's the lack of confirmation that you were ever being left. Because uncertainty keeps hope alive longer than truth ever would. And hope is a strange thing. It doesn't ask permission to stay. Even when everything else is already gone, hope remains like a ghost that refuses to understand. It is no longer invited. I tried to fight it. I tried to replace it with logic. I told myself, if she wanted to leave, she would say it. If she was done, I would know.